Hello, 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 my resilient warriors. Welcome back to Break Through to Better. It's the podcast that empowers you to take control of your journey. I'm your host, Busy Babe, ready to give you through another expedition of self-discovery. So today we're tackling a topic that touches everyone at some point, managing stress and anxiety. So in a world that's always on the go, stress and anxiety can sometimes feel like unwelcome guests overstaying their welcome. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to invite calm and tranquility into our lives, teaching stress and anxiety that they don't need to get to call the shots, and then also to get ready to discover practical tips for managing stress, reducing anxiety, and cultivating mental peace. So remember, every cloud has a silver lining, and you have the power to find it. So let's move forward and turn life stressors into life strengths right here on Breakthrough to Better. Oh, P.S. We're doing a giveaway raffle every week starting next week for those that leave reviews and comments below. This week's giveaway is brought to you by Layered Jewelry, affordable, stylish, quality pieces that let you express your unique style. This week's winner is getting a piece of their choice. All right, let's get into it. So today I have a guest with me. This is someone who I work very closely with, who is an absolute superstar. And I'm not just saying that because a lot of other people who have met her have also called her a superstar. She just has this infectious energy, this can-do attitude. She's been through a lot of stuff and she always comes out on the other side stronger. So I thought there's no better person to discuss having stress and anxiety than this girl right here. So please welcome to the show, Daniel Shakely.
Thank you so much, Donna. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here. Super excited.
Yeah, I mean, I guess tell everyone a little bit about yourself. You know, what's your background, and then go into a little bit about how you deal with stress.
Hi everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Danielle Shapley. I am from a very small town in Arizona, actually on the Utah-Arizona border. And I'm the third child of 8. So grew up with a lot of sisters and 2 brothers. And life was, we traveled a lot, but we kind of didn't have that emotional support growing up. So that's the main thing. But what it really made me stronger as a person. Like, I think back on my childhood and I'm like, I wouldn't, sometimes you're like, I wish it turned out a little differently. But now looking back, it's like, I wouldn't change anything because it made me who I am. But yeah, just really dealing with stress and anxiety. It's a journey, right? I think like the more you focus on like trying different things that work for you, it's kind of breaking the pattern. But what I found like that helps me is say for example a situation that makes me have like anxiety, because like being around a lot of people, I used to get like high anxiety, like I couldn't be around a lot of people a lot of the times. So what I found is me just putting myself in that situation like over and over, then my anxiety went less. So really for me, it's like I just have to do the thing that like scares me most, and then like I don't have anxiety about it anymore. So yeah, that's a little bit how I deal with it.
Yeah, that's a very healthy way to deal with it. I think is facing your fears head on. A lot of people don't even get to that point. They just avoid. And sadly, some people don't cope with stress in a healthy way. I think a lot of people, myself included, will find other ways to deal with it. So for me, it was always like when I was stressed in college, I would eat a lot. And that's truthfully how I gained a lot of my weight, was just being so stressed out from the demands of like a 21 credit semester that I would just eat whenever I felt stressed or sad or anxious or whatever. Um, and it wasn't until years after college that I found healthier ways to deal with stress. And I know we have a lot of friends in common, and we know that both of them, all of them basically, will say like, hey, like you should probably find something to deal with stress, like exercise. And, to each his own with exercise, with the intensity you go into it. Because some people are gym rats and some people do it just because they need it as an outlet. But there are other ways besides exercise as well to deal with stress. I mean, there's meditation, there's, like creative outlets. Like for me, music was a big thing. Um, and, just talking to people, I think also helps a lot. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have people to talk to, or they do have people to talk to and they're afraid to open up. Um, and I think that's a stigma that happens a lot with, especially males. They're not very um, encouraged to open up to their friends, which is, I think, a little bit sad because, I think that if they did, I think they'd find a lot of support there because everyone's trying to walk around like there's nothing wrong in their lives when really, like, everybody's going through something. And if we all kind of just reached out, we would be a lot better for it as a bigger humanity. Um, but yeah, I mean, when you go through anxiety and stress, like I know you said that you could break it down to highs, but like, have you ever had experience with like anxiety attacks or like stress attacks or anything like that?
Yeah, so I was always the very strong one. I was like the person that didn't really talk to people, or I kind of hid it because I was always there for other people. And I didn't want people to know that I was struggling because, like, and even if I did, they would just be kind of like, look at me weird or just like, whatever, like, you're the strong one, like, you need to be strong. I'm like, I can't be strong all the time. But yeah, there was a few times, but most of the time when I'm struggling with these, I just kind of like go off, like in my room or something, and like try to do some sort of meditation, and just helps me get through it, like work through it. Um, because yeah, it's a lot. There are times where I'm fighting like an attack, um, and I'm around people, but they don't really notice because I hide it so well just from growing up, just, being the strong one. So it's definitely been like a, a journey of finding things that work for me and not just running from it. Because that's how I used to be. I ran from a lot of my problems just because I didn't want to deal with them. And I honestly don't know if I could have dealt with them at the time. Like, I was just trying to get through the day and like focus on like a little bit of hope. But yeah, it doesn't help to run from them. That's what I learned. So yeah, I still learning process, but that's what I found so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm smiling because I relate because same. Um, I used to have these panic attacks in public, and I'd be in a room full of people, and I remember it so clearly. I was out one night in college with some friends, and my friend turns to me and goes like, "Oh, how you doing?" or whatever. And I was like, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm just having a panic attack." And they look at me like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just having a panic attack." And they're just like, you don't look like anything's wrong. Like I would never tell." I was like, "Yeah, I know. It's just kind of happening internally, but you don't see it on the outside." And um, I don't remember where it is that I learned this. It could have been in a book or a show or a video, something, but it was years ago when I learned it. There's this tactic that I use every time I have a really, really bad panic attack or anxiety attack. Um, and it's basically just like everything in your room. There's like a bunch of items in your room. So you focus on one thing and be like, okay, there's the phone charger, and then you go, okay, so there's the phone charger and there's the Bluetooth speaker, and then you start from the beginning and you go, there's the phone charger, there's the Bluetooth speaker, there's my notebook. And then you start all the way again from the beginning. And each time you add a new item onto the list to the point where you're focusing so much on trying to remember everything that's on the list and building upon it, that you're no longer thinking about the thing that you were thinking about that caused you to have that stress and anxiety. And when I first learned it, I was like, that's silly. Like, that's just a silly game that you can play with kids. Like, there's no way that that's going to help me with anxiety. But ever since, I've used it when things were really, really bad. Like, just taking one item at a time and listing it off really does help you focus on something else and just brings your system back to a place of calm. I think it's somewhat similar to when Melt Robbins talks about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where it resets some sort of thing in your brain. Probably it shuts off like the amygdala or something. But it definitely does help. And that's what I've been using for serious panic attacks. I mean, even with medication, you still can get panic attacks, which I think people don't think that's the case. They think, oh, well, you're taking medication, so you must be fine. But like, that doesn't exactly mean that you're never going to get another anxiety attack. So it's important to learn the tools to deal with that stuff. Otherwise, you can't medicate the heck out of you to where you're just a zombie walking around and, there's no living in that. Um, and I definitely agree with you with just like not running away from things. I think that I've learned that pretty much over the last 3 years, that that's something that I definitely needed to work on was not avoiding things and not procrastinating. And then I always thought procrastinating was just a form of being lazy until I read this book. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was called The Now Habit or something like that. And it basically broke down why people procrastinate, the different reasons why they do. And basically, we're saying like procrastination is just a coping mechanism. It's not being lazy, which I think a lot of people they label procrastination or procrastinators as people who are just lazy. And I don't think that's the case for the most part. I think most people procrastinate because they're either afraid of doing something or they just don't know how to proceed, they don't have the knowledge, or there's some kind of stress involved in it. And it's interesting because I always thought I was lazy and I couldn't like coincide the two ideas in my head that like I work hard, I'm a hard worker, I've always been called a hard worker, but I'm a procrastinator. Or at least I said I was a procrastinator. So I couldn't rectify the two of those things at the same time. It made no sense to me. And when I read that book, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense because it's just a coping mechanism. And I think now just reminding myself that things need to get done whenever they pop into my head and just to take action and just be like an executor of action um, is something I've definitely learned in a lot of different trainings from a lot of different successful people. They're always people who take action right away. They don't think about it. They don't let anxiety have time to get in the way. They just do it. And then after it's done, then maybe they can go have, a bit of anxiety about what they did, but they don't let it stop them from doing the action. And what I love about you the most is that when you are your best, Danielle, you are not thinking and you just do things and then you figure them out as you go, which is very, very cool because it's just like the thing that a lot of people wish they could do because people don't have that. I don't know what to call it. I don't know if it's a talent or a skill or just a like an innate thing where people just act without thinking and then they do it and then they worry about cleaning up the mess later. But we're so afraid to make mistakes that we just don't do anything at all. And so for yourself, like what would you say to a person who is very just stuck right now because they keep putting things off because they're so fearful of things and they're just not acting? Like what advice would you give to those people?
Um, yeah, I can totally relate because I was one of those people at a time of my life. Growing up, though, I was as a little girl. I didn't think about things, so I just did them. I was fearless. But like over like my teenage years and things like that, I really got stuck in that fear. And it really is just a fear. But the thing that you fear the most is the thing that you just need to work towards. And once you just do it, like Donna was saying, like how you were saying, just do it and then think afterwards, then freak out afterwards, then you're through it and that's the thing you needed to work towards. um and then you're like through that fear. But I would just say you just have to go for it. You just have, I think, for me, I just really got fed up with being stuck, being stagnant, that I'm just like, I would rather go through this fear than stay the same. So if you're struggling with just like going after something, I would just say go for it because you absolutely have it in you. Um, and the fear's just trying to win. Like the fear's just a little voice in your head that's trying to stop you from achieving your 100% potential. So just don't let's do it and go for it. That's what I'd say.
I love that. That's gold. If you listen to that, rewind and listen to it again and again and again, because that's 100% true. Um, I think we let the fear become stronger than the why. And at the end of the day, the only reason why we ever push through fear is to get to the other side. And so I would, I kind of would summarize that as just having a very strong why as to why you want to move forward and get unstuck. Um, because there are some people who are very comfortable and they don't really have anything pushing them forward. Um, but I think most of those people just aren't looking hard enough in the mirror. A lot of people avoid looking at themselves in order to, be okay with where they are. Um, and I think for me, being in the same place next year gives me more anxiety than, like not doing the things that would get me there. Um, and I'm not sure if that's a thing that everybody has. I think that might be a thing that might be exclusive to some people. But even if it wasn't, I feel like if you just dug deep enough to find out a strong enough why, you would really want to move forward. It always drives me crazy when you like offer them an opportunity to move, right? And they're like, no, I'm okay with where I'm at. And you're like, how? How are you okay with where you're at? Not like in a disrespectful way, because, like you're not like downing, what their life is. But at the same time, like we're human beings and our potential to grow is endless. And the only thing that we have to do is just get over that anxiety and that stress. And then we can have everything we ever wanted on the opposite side of fear. Um, and, you know, for yourself, like, what was one of the pivotal moments in your life, like, where you had to make a change and you just made the decision to go for it? Like, where, I know, I know we say, like, you're only 21 right now, but, like, no matter where you are in life, I feel like everybody has that pivotal moment where they made a decision and it changed the course of their life. Like, what was your pivotal moment?
I had a few of them. I don't know, but I would say the biggest pivotal moment for me was just deciding to move out of my parents' house, um, and really just do things on my own because I wasn't raised to live on my own. I wasn't taught like what the heck you're supposed to do as an adult, so that freaked me out. But it freaked me more out to stay in a place where I wasn't encouraged to grow, where I was not encouraged to be more and tap into my potential. And so, like, I'm like, well, I can stay the same and go backwards, or I can like grow endlessly and tap into like full potential, right? Um, so I had nothing figured out. That one night I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided I was moving out. I packed up all my stuff in my room, like 20 at the time, 20 years of things. I got a storage unit. I put it all in there. I was just planning on sleeping in my car. Um, but then a friend at work, like she kind of knew I was struggling with something because I was like freaking out. I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm like, I'm doing it anyways. And she offered me to stay with her for a few months. So stayed there and then, just over time, just kept figuring out the next steps. So that was probably my biggest pivotal moment in my life. Of Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely did see a change just from working like closely with you, like seeing the difference between when you made that decision and just kind of even in all of that like uncertainty, you still felt stronger than when you knew what everything was coming next. Like that's that was really cool to see up close. Just to see the change in that. And I guess for yourself, like what's one thing right now that you're anxious about that you're trying to overcome?
Probably just still like approaching people and having those conversations. Like I don't like people can tell me things like, oh, you need to not be doing that. You should be doing that. I know what I'm doing with my life, so I'm like, whatever. Like I listen to them and then I just do what I do. Um, but it's more so of building like relationships and having people really close to me that I'm anxious with, just because as a younger person, then I kind of just I was hurt, and we were all hurt, blah, blah. I'm not gonna go into all of it, but like I after a while I just kind of like didn't let people get close to me. I kind of just like hid away. So it's just opening myself to really just getting close to people and building that. But then I think about it, and most of the time it's just in my head because like when I'm out of my head, like I connect with people just fine, and like I'm like fine. I'm just like la la. I just be me, and like and so I'm just like it's just in my head, and the more that I just get out of my head, the more things are just easier. But that, and then just I don't know if I feel like you'll always kind of have some stress or like anxiety about the future, but it's just not getting caught up in that. It's just like focusing on what is your next step. I think that's what really has helped me.
Yeah, I love that. It's just like living for the now and then like working towards the
Yeah.
future. And I think that's something that we all struggle with is leaving our past in the past.
Yeah.
um, definitely like the idea that you should take the lessons forward. Obviously,
Yeah.
like you should learn from your past mistakes. Like we're not saying live as if you never, had anything happen to you ever. But like you can't let things hold you back. And a lot of people are struggling with things that happened in the past. And it's so weird how like things that happened in the past that are completely done with and over with, maybe even the person that it involved, they're not even thinking about it anymore. And yet you're there still thinking about it, right? And you're letting it affect the rest of your life. And I think it's kind of silly when you break it down like that, but like your brain just like doesn't know the difference between like what is true and what is not true. And I think that's why fear and anxiety are so strong because if your brain doesn't know what's true and not true, and you feed it these ideas that are giving you this fear and anxiety that end up not even coming true anyway, like you're playing right into like the hand of fear and anxiety by giving it more power by thinking about it more. And it's just like paralyzing people. And it's it's kind of like ironic that like when we are feeding anxiety and stress about with all of these like fears and thoughts, we could be feeding the opposite instead because it takes the same amount of creativity to create like worst case scenarios as it does to create best case scenarios. And we keep thinking like, oh, but like what's the worst that could happen? But I have this quote that's like literally like right in front of me right now, and it says what's the best that could happen.
I love
And I
that.
think that we need to implement that more in our lives, myself included. um, about, instead of being afraid of like reaching out to a stranger or a person or trying to do something to move your business or your life forward and being like, well, what if they say no? What if they reject me? What if they don't like me? What if they throw things at me? Like, I don't know, like anything. Um, but then we could also ask ourselves, like, well, what if I change this person's life? What if I am the person in their life that's going to help them get through something? What if they really needed to talk to someone today? Like it's a lot more powerful to give yourself these questions that empower yourself more than disempower you. And I know one of our mentors, mutual mentors, always tells me, like, ask yourself empowering questions. Don't ask yourself questions that don't serve you. And I think that has a lot to do with anxiety and stress. It's just the questions of what if. And we can definitely improve on our what if questions. Definitely. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess for I know we're gonna wrap up a little bit, but I guess for yourself, like, is there anything that you want to leave people with about stress and anxiety before we wrap up?
Yeah, sure. There's this one thing that's really helped me. I think the same mentor that we were talking about taught me is when you take the focus off of yourself and really focus on your message or helping people, um, it's like you that stress and anxiety goes away. And I notice that too, because like when I have to speak like in front of people, I notice I do the best when I'm not thinking about me. I'm not thinking how do they look, how do people think of me. I'm thinking, okay, like how can I help these people with like my message? And I'm just focusing on my message and not me. And I'm focused on other people, right? I do the best when I'm focusing on that rather than on myself because when I focus on myself, I find myself like rambling and it just isn't as good as it could have been. So yeah, that's what I would leave you with. Like if you find yourself stuck in like stress and anxiety, like take it off yourself, like your focus, and focus on like your mission, like or what it is you want to do, or like helping people and stuff like that. Because that's something that really has helped me.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to end the episode. And thank you so much, Danielle, for joining me today.
Yeah,
Thanks for taking the
thanks for
time
having
out.
me.
Where can people find you on social media? They can follow you.
Um, So on Facebook, it's just Danielle Shapley, and then Instagram and TikTok, it's Danielle underscore Lil Sunshine.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's all for today's episode of Breakthrough Better, guys. Hope you found some insights and inspirations from our discussion. And as we continue exploring life lessons and turning them into stepping stones for personal growth, if you've enjoyed this episode, please spread the love, share it on your social media channels. Let's inspire others to also strive for their betterment. So be sure to tag us, use the hashtag Breakthrough Better. Every share, every comment, every review helps us reach more people and make a wider impact. So until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, when you get better, the world gets better.